Smart electricity encompasses the smart operations of the entire power system, right from the power generation to transmission and distribution, ensuring optimized operations. Various monitoring and control technologies and automation solutions help in achieving the optimal performance of the power system. India is set to record the largest increase in the energy demand across the world over the next 20 years. In the current scenario, the grid in India are being stretched to their capacities with the ever increasing demand for power, generation, transmission, and distribution. So, to deal with it, we require smart electricity grid, smart meters, and smart systems that can monitor and effectively manage the complexities of the electricity and its future needs. Today, you are going to be part of an engaging session on smart electricity in India, the road ahead.
So our first speaker would be Mr. Nilesh Kane, Chief Distribution, Mumbai Operation, Tata Power. Mr. Sabyasachi Majumdar, Senior Vice President and Group Head, Corporate Sector Ratings, ICRA. And Mr. Vivek Saravate, Head Distribution System, Smart Infrastructure, Siemens India.
I would like to invite our guest speakers for EPR's panel discussion on smart electricity in India, the road ahead. I would also like to invite Mr. Prasad Nair, editor of EPR magazine, and Mr. Sudhir, associate editor of EPR.
Thank you, Gurlin, and welcome panelists to the discussion. Let's begin with Mr. Nilesh. Mr. Nilesh, where does India stand currently in smart electricity concept?
So far as India is concerned, and regarding the smart electricity, in the smart electricity, in the generation, transmission, and distribution, everywhere, there is a fair chance, and there are a lot of plans are there with all the companies ahead. For example, smart metering, so almost all the companies' standardization of the specification, BIS specifications have been standardized, BIS approval has been done. And even as mentioned, EESL has rolled out many tenders. So smart metering has been rolled out in all the distribution companies. As in earlier presentation discussed, battery storage and its integration and creating, the stability and the discipline in the network is also being rolled out. In Tata Power also we have done, the grid level battery storage and community battery storage and its integration. And recently CERC has come out with the ancillary service notification. So hopefully the battery services, the battery storage, integration, grid transfer will come. SCADA, GIS, and all these things are become in the normal buzzwords, and most of the utilities are using that. So the SCADA automation distribution management system, that is everything is in a place. In addition to that, let me tell you, the microgrids, maybe urban microgrids and the rural microgrids are coming up in a big way, because there are still a lot of villages in India are there, they are not connected with the electricity. So by using solar and battery storages, and then the non-electrical the energy sources, and that integration on the cloud, the microgrids are also coming in a big way. In a transmission, let me tell you, the two incidences, fewer back in Delhi and recently in Mumbai, the sudden power failure and grid failure has happened. That's why, there is a huge plan of coming up with laser monitoring unit and its integration in SCADA and real-time monitoring. So in a transmission, generation and distribution, I could see a lot of technology implementation, integration and real-time monitoring will happen in time to come. So there is a huge scope from, my understanding point of view. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Nilesh, that's a realistic observation. Mr. Sabyasachi, what is your thought on this current scenario of smart electricity, especially from a state DISCOM's perspective?
So obviously there's no gainsaying in that thing, smart electricity can, play a very big role in, reducing the losses of the DISCOMs. But as of now, it's still at a very, infancy stage, and, whatever little progress has being done in the case of smart, the meters are in place to a great extent. They are not being used, particularly in the state-owned discoms across several, states which are very much challenged, like Tamil Nadu, Madhya Pradesh, UP, Bihar, Rajasthan, etc. There, the data which is being thrown up by smart meters, the smart meters are not being placed, and even where they are being in place, they are not being extensively utilized. So in many of these states, we see that the real AT&C losses are much higher than, would be the case in the scenario where, smart metering was being done. So on one hand, of course, it shows that, why these discoms are in a loss, but it also gives us a roadmap as to how, you could, reduce the losses by using the whole, gamut of smart electricity activities. Now, the challenges, of course, mainly would be that, substantial funding would be required. I mean, metering itself would require upward of 50,000 crore rupees or so, and there will be other legs of the entire scenario. And obviously, many of these discoms are not in a very healthy scenario, in a healthy financial position. But having said that, if they are very serious, I'm sure the central government would step in with a fair amount of funding for that. And obviously, separate, like what, ESL is planning to do by, moving towards a model where the capex is taken over by, third parties, and, the payment comes in way of, energy savings. That is definitely very much possible.
Mr. Majumdar, you rightly pointed out the need for, or you can say the relevance of smart electricity. But when you look at, Mr. Vivek, this question is to you. When you look at the way how we always plan our infrastructure, what is required today get implemented after 5 years or 10 years. So if you see the concept of smart electricity, how do you look at it? How its implementation in India, is it happening in the right pace? One, view of yours from, implementing smart electricity point of view.
Okay, see, it depends from place to place. You cannot define all of India into the same group here. We know that there are places where it is happening very fast, and most of the private utilities, if you look at Tata Power, if you look at Torrent, CSC, I think they have been the front runners in implementing these technologies, and they have gotten benefits of this as well. I think these are progressive utilities where they look at a technology where they're prepared to implement some of them on a pilot basis and then make use of it on a larger scale. What works, what doesn't work, they are able to find out. But this is not happening across India. I think there are still large spaces where we can do much better. Even if you look at our installed bases which are old, even in the utilities which are progressive, they are not equipped with sensors where you can make the best use of those installations. There are still a lot of places where regulations and policies are still not very clear. There's not enough standardization, which is limiting the implementation of these technologies. So I think that is where we can do much better as a country.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Vivek. As we said, some of the utilities are positively looking towards investing more in technology. But if you look largely in India, including the state electricity boards, are they really open towards investing more on technology in today's scenario?
I think there are a lot of policies which are coming in, and definitely there is a move towards becoming more and more smarter. And you can see this across, when the new tenders are coming out and new white papers are being written by even public utilities, it is definitely happening. The key question is the pace of it and the implementation speed of it. What happens many times is the white paper comes out, they go in, they start with the project. First of all, the project itself takes a long time to start. And second is the implementation of that project on the ground then takes a further long time. So a project which is supposed to be finished in a couple of years and take advantage of the experience from that, it takes 5 years to finish the project and then another 5 years to pick the best practices out of it. So I think that is where a change is needed in the speed of implementation of these technologies. The second thing which is also important is for everyone, the consumers as well as the utilities, to start looking at the total cost of ownership, and not only to look at what is the initial cost and make a decision based on that, but it's very important to look at the total cost. One small example is, for example, when we are talking about electric vehicles, if you just take the price of electric bus today, it is nearly 3 times the price of a diesel bus. But if you look at the total cost of ownership over 7 years, by the end of 5th year or 6th year, it starts breaking even. And life of a bus we know is approximately 15 to 20 years. So when we start looking at the total cost of ownership, that is where this will start changing the equation. That is the very important point that everyone should look at.
Yeah, absolutely. So the timeline and the TCO, or you can say ROI, definitely creates an impact on these decisions. Thank you so much for throwing lights in that area. Yes, Mr. Sudhir, please take it forward.
Thank you. Mr. Sabyasachi, how do you compare the adoption of smart electricity concept in state-owned DISCOMs with that of private sector?
Well, most of the state-owned DISCOMs are, not in a very good shape at all. So whatever, major implementation which has been done in the field of smart electricity, we see quite a bit of progress in Bombay, Ahmedabad, Surat, etc. So what I am saying is that basically whatever limited progress we have seen in the case of smart electricity is largely in the urban areas. I've seen a fair amount of most of this is in the state-owned area. So progress has been quite limited, apart from maybe a few pilot projects in some of the circles in state-owned DISCOMs. Having said that, these are not really apples to apple comparison, because we know that a lot of the activities of state-owned DISCOMs is in rural areas and suburban areas, more difficult areas. But having said that, the overall answer would be that the progress in state-owned DISCOMs has been quite limited.
Yes. So what you have said is a realistic picture, definitely, Mr. Sabyasachi. Mr. Nilesh, what technologies will support in achieving the goals of smart electricity in India? We have already discussed a few on that.
So the different technologies, regarding the smart electricity and smart metering, the major important thing is that the communication. So communication, every day in, day out, it is, expanding, and a lot of advancements are happening. So it started from the PLCC. We have seen, the technologies in USA and Europe and all. But I will not say that different technology, every technology has its pros and cons, The 4G technology of communication, you may take it as an RF technology, you may take it, the PLCC technology, you may take NB-IoT technology. So NB-IoT, after getting the best of the geo network available, and the cost, let me tell you, the cost of per meter communication is more than 25 rupees in Mumbai we are paying. And if you will go for the Jio, you can manage in 10 rupees or 11 rupees. So you will see how much OPEX we are spending on that. So technology will be judged based on the reliability and, based on the cost what we are spending. So this is a tightrope walk, and we are doing that. So every technology, I am not denying any technology is suitable or not. So whichever best, the availability is there, wherever best infrastructure is available there, you have to use that network. Only a call to be taken by the utility that which is the suitable technology at the best price and the best cost is available. You have to explore that and use that.
Yes.
So we are open for every technology.
Yeah, definitely. We have to choose the right technology mix. So let's hear from Mr. Vivek on this.
So the choice of technology, see, it will completely depend on what the problem is. I think that the need is innovation, and the things that will work in Europe may not work in India. That is very important to understand. And unless we innovate at a local level and can create solutions for the customers when they're having the problems along with them, this will not work. So I will not pick any technology and say that, okay, this is going to work or this is not going to work. I think there is a need for a very close collaboration between the users and the suppliers of technology. Have pilots which we work together to see whether it works or not, because it's something new. It may work or it may not work, but prove it with a pilot and then go ahead with scaling up of the technology. I think that is the need of the hour.
Yeah, of course. You have to see the technology that works for that project. Yes. Definitely, yes.
I would just add that if we don't select pilot in a proper way, and if that pilot fails, then it puts the complete industry back many years. It puts us at least 5 years behind making our grid smarter. So it is very important to conceptualize the project nicely in a proper way, select the right partner to do it, and once this planning and conceptualization is done in the right way, then implement it. Sometimes we go ahead with someone just thinking that, okay, I need to do this without ensuring that the base work is done properly, and therefore the concept fails. It is not because of technology, but because of poor planning. So I think that is where we need to take a conscious call that we conceptualize and plan the technologies properly.
Right, Mr. Vivek, you have mentioned the highlights of the choosing the right technology. Definitely. Mr. Sabyasachi, how is the concept of smart metering evolving in India? You know, in the rural sector, it's not that up to the mark. So, how do you look at this trend?
So I think in the first instance in the rural area, the focus of would be first stage would be basically separation of the irrigation feeders and the non-irrigation feeders. So that is the first stage of that. Then I think the increasing focus would now be to go into the prepaid meters. The idea is that most of the rural households have very little consumption. So the focus really would be towards moving towards prepaid meters. And also, what has been thought about is to move into a DBT system, like in the case of LPG, where the users will be charged full charge, but then there will be cash support in the form of subsidy which comes in. So I think going forward, the right way would be to look at feeder segregation, followed by moving towards prepaid meters and possibly towards DBT. I mean, pilot projects are there, but that seems to be the thinking on part of the government. And of course, in the case of irrigation feeder, to add to it, solarization is definitely going to be the way forward.
Okay, Mr. Sabyasachi, that's a right analysis as far as the rural area is concerned. Yeah. So let's get the views of Mr. Nilesh on smart metering.
Yeah. Also, Mr. Nilesh, when you address the question of smart metering, again, Mr. Vivek also mentioned about this. It's about the investment aspect. You mentioned in the previous comment about what money we invest there. So, is that actually getting addressed with the present pricing policy? If you see the present pricing policy for power is more or less on the demand and supply, and various sources of power generation, including solar, or you can say wind, or any alternative energy. If you look at it, most of the time the pricing becomes so challenging for the producers. So how do you see that for smart electricity, having smart electricity in India, present pricing policy, will that be adequate?
So a very good question. There are 2-3 things whenever we are adopting the technology. I agree with Mr. Vivek. The total cost of ownership is a very important concept. And secondly, adopting the technology. Sometimes you fail, in the sense always you cannot have always a meticulous planning and all, because a lot of things and a lot of technologies are delayed because you keep on doing the planning. So 2 important things: whenever there is a technology, the prices will come down with a scale, but at least you should adopt the best of the technology, showcase it, and when the benefits are visible on the platter, then the people will come behind you and start getting to the technology, and the technology is adopted. And obviously initially you should have instead of getting into the comparison, for example, initially the normal electronic meter, the pricing was around 700-800 rupees, and the smart meter was around 4,000 rupees. So it was not comparable, absolutely not comparable to make any business case and to adopt that. So at that time, you need to go ahead with and to implement, the project, and then the benefits are visible. And after that, the things will come down. By that time, the scale will also come. So we started with around 4,500 rupees a single phase meter, and now the prices are below 3,000. So things will happen when you adopt the technology. So far as, the future of the smart meter and its technology and implementation is concerned, we are very positive. Our experience in Delhi and Mumbai are very good. And rather, that is why the reason we are going ahead in the Odisha, because every utility has its own challenges, In Mumbai, the customers are demanding, they need actual information, real-time information. In the areas like Delhi and Odisha, we have taken up the losses are more than 40-50%. There you need to identify and get the data real-time to identify the theft and accordingly manage your AT&C losses. So the need everywhere is different, but technology will definitely help, to get the information, to get the real-time data, to get, the complete information. You can pass on this information to the customer. Meter survey data you can get for the network planning and all. So there are a lot of, benefits of the smart meter. There is a huge future for that. Prices are also coming down, and hopefully, we started with 2,500 rupees for the electronic meter, and now the latest tender is 400 rupees or 480 rupees in Tamil Nadu. So things will happen, things will follow. It has a huge future for the technology so far as the smart meter is concerned, based on the limited experience we have in 2-3 utilities.
Yes, Mr. Nilesh.
Can you, Sudhir, can you also address the other aspect of this question, like how it will become financially feasible for, Indian industry to have such investments in technology unless we look differently on the pricing policy?
See, financial viability will always become when you can extract the best benefit and applications of the particular technology. As one of the speakers said, that only implementing the smart meter and without utilizing and creating a business case will not serve the purpose. You will not get the money out of that. Let me tell you, for example, we are doing 1,10,000 disconnection every year in Delhi. And for every disconnection, we are sending a vehicle and 2 people at the backyard of the customer and disconnecting that. And again, for, after payment, we are sending again for the reconnection. So if you calculate that cost and, by using the smart meter, you can do it from remotely. You can simply disconnect and you can simply connect without, human intervention. At the same time, the billing and collection, So for the billing and collection, earlier human intervention was there, The person was going, taking a meter reading, collecting that, and then punching on the computer, and then you're doing, the billing. So now it is automatic, everything, the smart meter, you will get the data automatically, more accurate data, more than 99% accurate, and you will get that data. Defective meter identification. Earlier, when it is reported to you, when only that meter reader will go and you will find the similar reading time and again, you will find that the meter is defective. Now here, real time, you will know that this meter is defective and not giving the data from the communication point of view or the meteorology point of view. So the data is available at you, and how best you can make the business case out of that, then only it becomes the feasible. If you will implement the smart meter and not using all the features, no point in, doing that and calculating that how you will recover the money. Use it, very intelligently, smartly, and try to use the optimum use of the smart meter. Obviously, it is a good business case.
Yeah, so what I get is that you rightly said that technology will reduce the overhead cost of operations.
And it will reduce the overhead cost. It will give, the convenience to the customer. It will give more information to the customer. It is a more transparent business, and a lot of add-on inputs to the, utility also to do the meticulous planning. For example, I am doing my CapEx planning as it is by the conventional way. By having the smart meter data, you are getting the accurate projection of the load growth in your area. So you may end up in saving some cost on your CapEx also. So it is beneficial to customer as well as you. It is only how intelligently you are using all that data.
Yeah. So your entire conversation was completely pointed towards the smart meter impact on the operations. Mr. Sabyasachi, what is your view on it? Like how sustainable it will be for us to move forward towards smart electricity in India with present pricing structure, especially when you look at in the interiors. You said about the rural areas of India where we are even supporting with a lot of concessions on electricity. So how it will be financially viable?
Basic, solution is that ultimately we have to move towards the cost of power purchase. All other operating expenses, they have to be part of the tariff. Now, the thing is, the point is, obviously, we know that there are a large number of customers, particularly in the rural areas, which will not be able to afford the full power. Now the solution to that is either, we provide subsidies, and the subsidies are transparently and upfront funded. I mean, as per the Electricity Act, all subsidies have to be provided upfront by the state government, whether they do it in a monthly, quarterly, whatever. So whatever is the real subsidization, that has to be borne either by the state government or by way, how they want to divide it within the state government and by way of cross subsidy. That, of course, is the prerogative of the regulators and the state government. But the point is that differential has to be paid by the state government. Now, whether it can be, directly routed to the DISCOM by way of subsidy payment to DISCOMs, or alternatively, you can move towards DBT. That, of course, is the call of the state government. They have to take it. But I think what must be done is that the full cost of electricity has to be paid for. And that is the only way that DISCOMs will be able to make the profit which is necessary for them to make the upfront capital investment which goes into all this smart grid technology. Yeah. So unless we give the DISCOMs the full, return on equity so that they can invest in the project, I think ultimately someone else will have to bear the cost of this capex.
Yeah, very realistic reply. Mr. Vivek, do you have something to contribute to this?
Yeah, see, I mean, when I look at this question, when we are talking about making electricity smarter, during my presentation, I said that nearly 40% of power is being used in the buildings today. And to make electricity smarter, smart meter is the point number one. Unless you know at what point of time energy is being used inside the building, you cannot do anything else with it. What I feel is policies will change over the years. All of us know that each unit generated of electricity doesn't cost the same. Energy which is consumed out, which is generated out of renewables is much cheaper as compared to something which is generated out of coal. So anything which you are generating at the peak is very expensive. And whenever your valley is at the bottom, it is a very cheap rate of power. As soon as you have these smart buildings, what will happen is, along with the smart meter, you can have the time of the day tariff on each of these buildings. And once that starts happening with policy changes, that is the time when users, the building owners themselves, will have an incentive to use much more smarter technologies to time what time they are using the power, maybe use automation inside their buildings, and technologies are available today. Say that if my peak today is 100 units, how can I ensure that I use the same power throughout the day with a peak of only 70? And those kind of changes will happen as we move forward in this journey. I think just putting a smart meter is point number one, step number one, which is a very important step. But after this, there are at least 100 more steps which can follow to help us making power more sustainable.
That makes a lot of sense, Mr. Vivek. Thank you so much for your contribution. Yes, Mr. Sudhir.
Yeah, Mr. Vivek, I have one more question to add to that. From the switchgear perspective, what are the smart solutions evolving in switchgears, especially for Indian projects?
Okay, so I mean, there are two parts of looking at this when we talk of switchgear. First is where switchgear is used. So I'll answer that first. And second is the smartness in the switchgear itself. That is number two. So I think how switchgear is being used is evolving over the years. So if you remember when you were younger, when the power goes from your home, it is typically gone for at least half an hour because someone has to find out why the power is out. After that, they have to reconnect the parts, and after that, someone manually does all of this work. After half an hour, power comes back to your home. Nowadays, when power goes, most of the times you get power back in a couple of minutes. So this has happened because people have made the grid smarter, which means that they have put sensors at certain places, they have put ring mains inside the distribution grid, and that's why you are getting power from multiple sources. If one source is gone, you can get power from the other source. So this is how the grid itself is becoming more and more, I would say, connected and intelligent. That is the first part as to how switchgear is helping here by becoming more and more automatic and able to work from remote. Second is the switchgear itself, because if that switchgear fails, which is making it intelligent, in that case, again, you have a problem because if that switchgear has failed, that power to your home cannot come back. Okay, unless that switchgear itself is corrected. In these cases, we are making switchgear more and more maintenance free, I would say, number one. whenever they are needing maintenance, we are trying to put sensors into the devices so that you know ahead of time when this equipment can fail. And this way, the utilities can move from a maintenance which is more of a preventive maintenance to a predictive maintenance, where they know ahead of time that, okay, my switchgear is going to fail 2 months from now, so let me go and take an action today. So these are the two ways in which we are making the grid smarter as well as the devices smarter to increase the reliability of the whole system.
Yeah, Mr. Vivek, these developments are really important for the sector. Mr. Nilesh, what opportunities lie ahead for you in the smart electricity space?
So I will take forward, the point raised by Mr. Vivek, the switchgear and the equipments what we are using, to make them smarter, make them communicable is very, 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 very important. For example, let me tell you, use of sensors is inevitable. In time to come, everywhere we need to have the sensors. Let me share, we have a fatal accident a few years back, and now for every ringman unit of every switchgear operations, we are putting a sensors, the self-speaking sensors. So that sensors, give the information before doing a wrong operation. For example, during the live, if he has to open the isolator and if he's putting an earthing switch and does an accident, so the sensors have been used. The partial discharge sensors, the thermal sensors, the ultrasonic sensors. So sensors are time to come, integration with that and the communication. For example, in Delhi, we have a longer feeders and time to restore, after getting the information was very difficult. So for important, the switchgears, we are putting the automation such that as soon as it trips, the concerned engineer used to get the SMS and immediately he rushes the team there. So in time to come, all your, not only, we started with SCADA, we started with GIS, we started with SAP, we started with integration. Now we are doing the smart metering. Now it's time that your transformers, your switchgears, your RMUs, everything's need to be smart, integrated and communicating such that you will get the real-time information. Response time will be high because SAIFI, SAIDI are the buzzwords and you need to be in few minutes now or few hours. So you need to have everything smart, and for that you need to use, sensors there, you need to communication devices there. And in addition to that, we need to get out of, the environment friendly product. Everywhere we are using the SF6. Now we want to get rid of that. So a lot of things are going on, so far as the switchgear and technology is concerned. And hopefully, the people are realizing a lot of technologies are coming and adoption is the need of an hour. But a lot of things are developed.
Absolutely, Mr. Nilesh. Also, I was just looking at the Q&A box. We have received almost near to a dozen questions. So one of the, question was addressing to the, some news reports on smart meters in North side. There, people were complaining about inflated billing. How far it is, experienced in reality, in your experience?
As such, we have not received any complaint. Reason behind, we have a very transparent things. We are getting real-time data, and if at all one or two complaints come, we have a process in place. We share that data with the customer. In my presentation, I shown you the graph on a daily basis, on a monthly basis. We showcase him the graph and ask him that you find out on a specific date why the consumption was more. It's a call you have to take. We have complete data available, and that data we are sharing with you. And for his convenience, we carry out the meter testing in front of him and showcase him this is the accuracy and these are the parameters and all. So we try to convince that what exactly happened in the North smart metering, I am not really aware to comment on. But after smart metering, as such, we are not getting any complaint. And hopefully, if the things are transparent and the meters are working okay, the data is coming to head and MDMS, regularly, these problems should not occur.
Yeah, that gives a lot of confidence when you explain to, in detail. Also, Mr. Vivek, there is another question from, delegate that Mr. Bhuvan Patel is asking. My question is how we see the challenges to manage the distributed energy on overall grid network and microgrid network, and what are the probable remedial suggestions and action?
I will try to answer that, but maybe Mr. Kane is more knowledgeable in that field. See, the challenge with distributed energy, as I said earlier, is that you do not know when it is there and it is not. So forecasting of renewables becomes very, very important. And there are various models available now where you can forecast renewables. So it is critical. With this complexity, so when you're merging different sources of energy, you need to when it is available so that you can plan the other sources properly. For example, you know that if you have thermal generation, you cannot suddenly increase thermal generation, or you cannot start a unit suddenly. You need to plan for that. So I think that is very, very important, number one. Number two is the grid stability part of this is also there, because if suddenly something has changed and you have lost solar or you lost wind, then grid stability is also an important part, where I'm not an expert, but definitely there are experts in the system who need to look at that part. So this is what makes it important. Microgrid is something where it has not picked up in India that much right now, but you can have situations where you're in a completely islanded case where you don't even have conventional generation. In that case, microgrid becomes important, because then you can have a solar power generated there, you can have wind, you can have hydel, you can combine these systems along with battery storage and generate the best thing out of it. What is important is to collect the data on an online basis from all of these systems, put in artificial intelligence into it to combine them properly, and based on that plan your system. I think based on my understanding, this is what is important.
Yeah, you addressed very well. Ms. Nilesh, you want to add anything to it?
Yeah, so I agree with Mr. Vivek, the meticulous planning and accordingly have, the capacity of the network, integration, real-time monitoring, all these things will help. So far as the microgrid is concerned, we have reached to rural microgrids, and Tata Power has more than 100 microgrids. And we are, managing our microgrids with solar integrated with the battery, and with the DG sets, and recently we have started doing the biogas and biomass plant there in the villages to take care of that. So during the day's time we are trying to use maximum solar power, and then keeping some battery storage available for evening time, and trying to operate minimum diesel and operate maximum biomass and biogas based on cow dung to manage the load. Soft starters are also being used to take care of sudden fluctuations in the load and all. And it is also interconnected with the grid, such that economics also can be managed. But the communication is backbone for everything. Planning is the backbone for everything, such that you will get the maximized generation from the solar, which is the cheapest one, and minimize generation from the diesel, which is the most costlier one.
Absolutely. So you again emphasized on the factor of communication. Thank you so much, Mr. Nilesh. And it was really a privilege to have all of you on this panel. And we are about to close this. Before we close this conversation, Mr. Vivek, how would you like to close this? With a closing statement, how would you like to put a closing statement for this interaction?
I think I will try to close it from the statement I made at the start. I think the need of the hour is to create sustainability. And sustainability is not only for us, it is for our future generations to have a greener planet. And this cannot happen if we don't change today. The window which is available for us is very, very small now. It is reducing every day. And unless all of us, whether we are generating, producing, in the middle, wherever we are, unless we start making smart choices, I think we will miss this time. So it is the need of the hour, and very, very critical for us to make the right choices today.
Thank you, Mr. Vivek. Mr. Sabyasachi, do you want to say anything before we move towards the closing of this session?
Yeah, sure. Basically, the challenge for our power sector is to move towards a long-term sustainability, where meet all the expenses, also make us question the growth of the business. And for doing that, I think making smart choices, including smart electricity, is a very critical component for that. And there needs to be investment on part of the DISCOMs, but equally there needs to be support from the state governments in ensuring that all the DISCOMs are run on smart lines.
Thank you, Mr. Sabyasachi. Yes, Gurleen, thank you so much. Gurleen, you can complete this session. Thank you.
This was such an energizing and informative session. Thank you, panelists, for exchanging your valuable experience, expertise, and thoughts on smart electricity in India, the road ahead. We hope you have enjoyed the session thoroughly. Before wrapping up today's session, we would like to thank our distinguished panelists, Mr. Nilesh Kane, Mr. Sabyasachi Majumdar, and Mr. Vivek Sarwate. I would also like to thank Mr. Sudhir for moderating the panel discussion and our editor, Mr. Prasad Nair, for taking this initiative. So with this, we would like to announce the closing of today's session. I request you to stay tuned for more such sessions from EPR. Until then, thank you and goodbye.